The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched out like a massive bowl made of shining metal and crystal. Hundreds of alien beings filled the curved seats that rose up from the center floor. Each creature looked different from the next. Some had wings that sparkled like diamonds. Others looked like giant bears with too many arms. A few seemed to be made of pure light, floating inside glass containers. Jake Morrison sat in the small viewing area reserved for guests. His hands were sweaty as he gripped the metal rail in front of him. Next to him sat Dr. Lisa Carter, a smart woman who studied alien life forms. On his other side was Captain Roy Bennett, a tough pilot who had flown them here in one of Earth's few spaceships that could travel between stars. The three humans were the only ones from Earth allowed to watch this meeting. They had traveled for months just to get here. Earth had recently sent radio signals into space and built basic rockets. The Alien Council had noticed and decided to talk about what to do with this new planet they had found. Ambassador Zethric stood at the center of the hall. He was tall and thin like a giant bug, with 4 arms and wings that looked like broken glass. When he spoke, his voice buzzed like an insect, but the translation device made his words clear to the humans. Fellow members of the council, Zethric said, "We gathered today to discuss the amusing discovery of a primitive world in Sector 7. The inhabitants call themselves humans and their planet Earth." A wave of chittering and rumbling sounds filled the hall. The aliens were laughing. Jake felt his face grow hot with anger, but he stayed quiet. Dr. Carter was writing notes on a small tablet. Captain Bennett sat perfectly still, but Jake could see his jaw muscles tightening. A beautiful creature that looked like living starlight floated forward. This was the Zephyrian delegate. Her voice sounded like wind chimes when she spoke. "These humans are quite charming in their simplicity," she said with a tone that made Jake think of adults talking about cute pets. "They have only just learned to leave their own atmosphere. Their attempts at space travel are rather sweet, really." More laughter echoed through the hall. A massive bear-like creature with 6 arms and thick brown fur stood up. This was the Corvin representative. His voice was deep and rumbling. "I have watched their battles," he said with amusement. "They fight with such tiny weapons over such small pieces of land. They call these conflicts wars, but they are more like children playing with sticks." The laughter grew louder. Jake wanted to stand up and shout at them. He wanted to tell them about the brave soldiers who had died fighting for freedom. He wanted to explain that humans fought not because they enjoyed it, but because they had to protect what they loved. But the guards near the viewing area made it clear that guests were supposed to stay silent. High Counselor Nexus spoke next. This being had no physical body at all. Instead, it appeared as a shifting cloud of silver mist that somehow had a voice. "My analysis of this species suggests they are following a predictable pattern," Nexus said in a cold, emotionless tone. "They will likely destroy themselves within 300 years. Most primitive species do. They discover nuclear weapons before they develop wisdom. They pollute their environment before they learn to protect it. They fight over resources instead of learning to share them." The hall fell quiet for a moment. Then the aliens began nodding and making sounds of agreement. To them, humans were just another failed experiment in evolution. Nothing special, nothing worth caring about. However, Nexus continued, they do provide some entertainment value. One proposed we establish a monitoring station in their solar system. We can observe their development and study their behavior patterns. It will be educational for our young scientists to watch a species in its final stages before extinction. Ambassador Zethric buzzed with approval. An excellent suggestion. We can treat this as a long-term research project. Perhaps we will learn something useful about why primitive species always fail to advance. The Zephyrian delegate chimed in again. "We should be careful not to interfere too much. We want to observe their natural behavior." Think of it as watching animals in their natural habitat. Jake's hands were shaking now. They were talking about putting Earth in a zoo. They wanted to watch humans like entertainment while waiting for them to die out. Dr. Carter had stopped taking notes and was staring at the floor. Even Captain Bennett looked pale. A new voice spoke up from across the hall. This alien looked like a walking tree, with bark-covered skin and leaves growing from its head. "What if they surprise us?" the tree being asked. "What if they actually manage to advance beyond their primitive stage?" The hall erupted in laughter again. Several aliens were slapping their knees or making other gestures of amusement. The idea that humans could actually succeed seemed like the funniest joke they had heard all day. "My dear Verdanian friend," Zethric buzzed with humor, "look at their history. They have been fighting wars for thousands of years. They still have poverty and disease on their world. They cannot even agree on how to govern themselves. What makes you think they could possibly join civilized galactic society?" The tree alien sat back down, looking embarrassed for even asking the question. High Counselor Nexus spoke again. "The mathematics are quite clear. This species shows all the signs of evolutionary dead end. They are too aggressive to achieve peace, too divided to work together, and too proud to accept guidance from superior civilizations. They will burn themselves out, just like the others." The vote was quick and unanimous. Earth would be classified as a developing curiosity, not important enough for real diplomatic contact, but interesting enough to watch from a distance. A monitoring station would be built at the edge of the solar system. Scientists from various species would take turns studying human behavior, like researchers watching lab rats dot as the meeting ended. The 3 humans were escorted back to their small quarters in the guest section of the space station. The hallways were filled with alien beings who looked at them with expressions that seemed to mix pity and amusement. Some pointed and whispered to their companions. Others simply ignored them completely. In their room, the 3 humans sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Jake spoke. "They think we're going to destroy ourselves," he said quietly. "They think we're stupid animals," Lisa added, her voice tight with anger. Roy Bennett stood up and looked out the window at the stars. "They have no idea what humans are really capable of," he said. "They see our fights and think we're violent. They see our differences and think we're divided. But they don't understand what makes us strong." Jake joined him at the window. "What do you mean?" Roy turned to face his companions. "Every war we've ever fought, every struggle we've ever faced, has made us tougher. We don't give up. We adapt. We find ways to survive that nobody expects. And when we really need to, we can work together like no other species in this galaxy." Lisa looked up from her notes. "They're making a mistake," she said. "They think they know everything about us, but they only see the surface. They don't understand human determination." Jake nodded slowly. "Then we'll have to show them." The 3 humans began to plan their return to Earth. They had a message to deliver to their home world. The galaxy saw humans as primitive animals destined for extinction. It was time to prove them wrong. Jake Morrison stood before the largest gathering of world leaders in human history. The United Nations building in New York had never seen anything like this. Every country on Earth had sent their most important people. Presidents, prime ministers, kings, and generals filled the great hall. Translators worked frantically to make sure everyone could understand each other. Jake's hands trembled slightly as he held his report. 6 months had passed since he returned from the alien space station. 6 months of preparing for this moment. He looked out at the sea of faces and began to speak. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jake said, his voice carrying clearly through the microphone system. "I have returned from the stars with news that will change everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe." The hall fell silent. Every person leaned forward to hear better. "We are not alone," Jake continued. "There are hundreds of alien species out there. They have cities that float in space and ships that can travel faster than light. They have weapons that can destroy entire planets and technology we can barely imagine." Excited whispers filled the room. This was the news humanity had dreamed of for centuries. "But there is more," Jake said, and his voice grew harder. "They think we are animals. They believe we will destroy ourselves within a few hundred years. They have set up a station near our sun to watch us die like some kind of entertainment." The whispers stopped. The room became deadly quiet. President Helen Ward of the United States was the first to speak. She was a strong woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. "What exactly are you telling us, Ambassador Morrison?" she asked. "I am telling you that we have been judged and found wanting," Jake replied. "The galaxy sees us as primitive savages who fight too much and think too little. They are waiting for us to burn ourselves out so they can study our remains." The room exploded into angry voices. The president of Brazil shouted about invasion. The prime minister of Japan demanded to know about defenses. The chancellor of Germany asked about diplomacy. Jake raised his hand for silence. "There is hope," he said. "They underestimate us. They see our wars and think we are weak. They see our differences and think we cannot work together. But I have seen their technology. I have studied their methods, and I believe we can surprise them." Prime Minister Charles Webb of the United Kingdom stood up. He was an older man with a calm voice that cut through the noise. "What do you propose we do?" he asked. Jake smiled for the first time since entering the hall. "We show them what humans can really do when we work together." The next 2 years transformed planet Earth in ways no one could have imagined. The Terran Advancement Initiative brought together the greatest minds from every nation. Old enemies became partners. Competing countries shared their most secret knowledge. Dr. Lisa Carter led the science division from a massive underground complex built beneath the Swiss Alps. Her team included the smartest people from every field. Dr. Kevin Park from South Korea worked on alien computer systems. Dr. Maria Santos from Mexico studied alien biology. Professor Chun Wei from China analyzed alien mathematics. The breakthrough came when Lisa realized something important about alien thinking. She was studying the alien technology they had secretly recorded during their visit to the space station. She had been trying to understand how their computers worked for months without success. "The problem is not the technology," she told her team during a late-night meeting. "The problem is how we think about it. We keep trying to understand it like human technology, but it is not." Dr. Park looked up from his workstation. "What do you mean?" "Each alien species builds technology based on how their minds work," Lisa explained. "The bug-like aliens think in groups, so their computers work like hives. The energy beings think very logically, so their systems follow perfect mathematical rules. But humans think differently than any of them." "How so?" asked Dr. Santos. "Walk to the big screen at the front of the room. We are creative in ways they are not. We can solve problems by making connections that seem impossible. We can take ideas from completely different areas and put them together in new ways." She pulled up examples of human inventions. "Look at how we learned to fly. We did not copy birds exactly. We studied birds, studied wind, studied physics, and then created something completely new. The aliens would have tried to grow wings or become birds themselves." The team began to understand. They stopped trying to copy alien technology exactly. Instead, they used human creativity to build something better. Captain Roy Bennett was having similar success with the military division. Working with General Patricia Stone and Admiral Frank Collins, he was training a new kind of space force. The aliens fought in space like they were still on the ground, using big ships and heavy weapons. Space is three-dimensional, Roy explained to a group of pilots in the training center. Most aliens still think in flat terms because that is how they evolved. But humans learned to fly in 3 dimensions. We understand up and down as well as left and right. The training was intense. Pilots learned to fight in zero gravity while spinning in all directions. They practiced moving in formation while flying upside down relative to each other. They learned to think of space as an ocean where they could swim in any direction. But the most important discovery came from an unexpected source. Dr. Nathan Price was a young man who studied human cultures and societies. He was not working on technology or weapons. Instead, he was reading everything the aliens had written about other species in the galaxy. Nathan burst into Jake's office one day with excitement shining in his eyes. "I figured it out," he said breathlessly. "I know why they think we will fail." Jake looked up from his reports. "Tell me." Nathan spread out charts and papers across Jake's desk. Every species in the galaxy forms groups based on biology or simple survival needs. The bug aliens work together because they are like insects with hive minds. The bear aliens cooperate because they need to hunt together. The energy beings join because it makes them more efficient. "So?" Jake asked. "So humans are different," Nathan said with growing excitement. "We form bonds based on ideas and emotions, not just biology. We can work with people who look completely different from us, who come from completely different cultures, who think in completely different ways. No other species does this." Jake began to understand. "You mean we can actually cooperate better?" "Then they can?" "Exactly. They form alliances of convenience. We form friendships of choice. They work together when they have to. We work together because we want to. And that makes us stronger in ways they cannot imagine." Nathan pointed to examples throughout human history. "Look at our greatest achievements. The International Space Station was built by countries that used to be enemies. Our best scientific discoveries come from teams of people from all over the world. Our strongest armies are made up of people fighting for each other, not just for their own survival." Jake felt hope growing in his chest. This was the key to everything. Over the following months, the human strategy took shape. They would not try to match alien technology with bigger weapons or faster ships. Instead, they would use their unique ability to work together in ways no alien species could match. Underground factories around the world began producing new types of spacecraft. These ships were smaller and faster than alien vessels, designed to work together like flocks of birds or schools of fish. Each ship could operate alone, but they became incredibly powerful when working as a team. The communication systems Dr. Carter's team developed allowed instant coordination between ships, light years apart. The training programs Captain Bennett created taught crews from different nations to work together seamlessly. Most importantly, the cultural exchange programs Dr. Price designed helped people from every country understand and trust each other. Jake stood in the main command center 2 years after his speech to the United Nations. Screens showed activity all over the world. Humans were building and training and planning with an energy that surprised even him. President Ward joined him at the main viewing window that looked out over the construction of humanity's first real space fleet. "Do you think we are ready?" she asked. Jake watched as ships designed by international teams were tested by multinational crews. He saw Chinese engineers working alongside American pilots. He watched African scientists collaborating with European tacticians. He observed South American manufacturers coordinating with Australian logistics experts. "The aliens think our differences make us weak," Jake said quietly. "They are about to learn that our differences make us stronger than anything the galaxy has ever seen." A message alert chimed on the communication system. Jake walked over and read the incoming signal. His face grew serious. "What is it?" President Ward asked. Jake turned to face her, his expression mixing worry with determination. "Long-range sensors have detected something approaching from outside the galaxy," he said. "Something big. Something that has the entire Galactic Council terrified. They are sending out emergency calls for help." President Ward understood immediately. "They need us," Jake nodded. "The galaxy that mocked us and dismissed us as primitive animals now faces a threat they cannot handle alone. And we may be the only ones who can save them." The irony was not lost on either of them. Humanity was about to get its chance to prove what they were really capable of. The great hall of the Galactic Council was no longer filled with laughter. The same aliens who had mocked humanity 2 years ago now sat in their seats with fear showing on their strange faces. Emergency lights flashed red across the chamber. Warning sirens wailed in the background. Admiral Korath of the Zephyrian fleet stood at the center of the hall. The beautiful energy being that had once called humans charming and simple now flickered with panic. Her voice no longer sounded like pleasant wind chimes. Instead, it cracked with terror. "The enemy has destroyed the Andromeda defense grid," she announced to the silent council. 17 billion lives lost in less than 6 hours. Our most powerful weapons had no effect on them. Ambassador Zethric's crystalline wings were folded tight against his insect-like body. The proud being who had suggested watching humans for entertainment now looked like he wanted to hide. "How many ships do they have?" he asked in his buzzing voice. Admiral Korath's form dimmed. "Our scouts report over 10 million vessels before they stopped transmitting. The enemy calls themselves the Devourers. They consume entire star systems to fuel their expansion. They have already destroyed 3 smaller galaxies." A wave of frightened sounds swept through the council chamber. Some aliens made clicking noises. Others growled or whistled. A few simply sat in shocked silence. High Counselor Nexus spoke from his cloud of silver mist. The being who had predicted human extinction now sounded desperate. "What is their technology level?" Nexus asked. "Unknown," Admiral Korath replied. "They do not use energy weapons like us. Instead, they send millions of small mechanical units that can change their shape and purpose instantly. When we destroy some, others learn from the attack and adapt. Our traditional battle tactics are completely useless against them." The Corvin representative stood up on his 6 legs. The massive bear-like creature who had laughed at human warfare now spoke with worry. "What do our military experts recommend?" He rumbled. Admiral Korath looked around the chamber. "General Thane suggests we evacuate the core worlds and retreat to the outer rim. Commander Vex wants to build fortress planets with massive defense systems. Admiral Kronos believes we should try to negotiate with them." "And what do you think? Will work?" asked the tree-like Verdanian delegate. Admiral Korath was quiet for a long moment. "I think we are going to lose," she said finally. "The Devourers have conquered 3 entire galaxies. They have never been defeated. Their tactics are unlike anything we have ever faced. We are not prepared for this kind of war." The council chamber erupted in panicked voices. Some aliens demanded immediate evacuation. Others called for suicide attacks. A few suggested surrendering and hoping for mercy. Above the chaos, a new voice spoke clearly and calmly. "Request permission to address the council." Everyone turned to look. Jake Morrison stood in the entrance to the chamber. He was no longer wearing the simple clothes of a guest. Instead, he wore a crisp uniform with the symbol of Earth prominently displayed. Behind him stood Dr. Lisa Carter and Captain Roy Bennett, also in formal uniforms. Ambassador Zethric's wings twitched with annoyance. "This is not the time for primitive species to waste our time with useless suggestions." But High Counselor Nexus surprised everyone by speaking up. "Let them speak." We need every idea we can get. Jake walked to the center of the chamber. He moved with confidence that had not been there during his first visit. Dr. Carter set up a small projector device. Captain Bennett stood at attention with his hands behind his back. Honorable members of the council, Jake began, we have analyzed the threat you face. We believe we can help. Several aliens made sounds of disbelief. The Corvin representative snorted with amusement. What could your primitive species possibly offer? The bear alien asked. You have barely left your own solar system. Jake smiled calmly. We offer a different way of thinking about this problem. Dr. Carter activated the projector. Images of the Devourer attacks appeared in the air above the council chamber. But these were not the same tactical displays the alien military had been showing. Instead, they looked like biological diagrams. The Devourers behave like a virus. Lisa explained in simple terms. They spread rapidly, consume resources, and adapt to resist whatever tries to stop them. Your military is treating them like a traditional enemy. But they are not traditional. Jake pointed to specific parts of the display. Look at their attack patterns. They do not fight like warriors. They fight like a disease. And the best way to defeat a disease is not with bigger weapons. It is with a stronger immune system. Admiral Korth flickered with interest despite herself. What do you mean? Captain Bennett stepped forward. Your fleets fight in predictable formations, with standard tactics. The Devourers learn from each battle and adapt. But what if the defense could adapt faster than the attack? Impossible, declared the Corvin representative. No military force can change tactics that quickly. A human military force can, Roy said confidently. We have spent 2 years training for exactly this kind of war. Small units working together, sharing information instantly, adapting to new threats in real time. Jake activated another part of the display. It showed human ships. In training exercises, the vessels moved like flocks of birds, constantly changing formation while staying perfectly coordinated. The key is not to build stronger defenses, Jake explained. The key is to build smarter defenses. Every engagement teaches the entire fleet. Every successful tactic is shared instantly across thousands of ships. Every failure is analyzed and corrected before the next battle. High Counselor Nexus's silver mist swirled with growing interest. This approach would require unprecedented cooperation between species. Our military forces have never worked together at that level, because you have never had to, Lisa said. Each of your species is used to fighting alone, or with their own kind, but humans specialize in making different groups work together. It is what we do best. Jake looked around the chamber at the frightened alien leaders. You need more than just ships and weapons to win this war. You need something the Devourers have never faced before. You need unity. Ambassador Zethric's wings spread slightly. Even if your ideas have merit, who would coordinate such an effort? Our military commanders cannot agree on basic strategy. We will, Jake said simply. The chamber fell silent. The idea of humans leading a galactic defense force was almost too strange to consider. These were the same beings the Council had dismissed as primitive animals just 2 years ago. You? The Corvin representative asked in disbelief. You want us to put the fate of the galaxy in the hands of a species that has not even mastered space travel? Roy Bennett spoke up. With respect, sir, your species has mastered space travel for thousands of years. How is that working out against the Devourers? The bear alien had no answer. High Counselor Nexus moved closer to the center of the chamber. What exactly are you proposing? Jake straightened his shoulders. Grant Earth temporary emergency authority to coordinate the galactic defense. Give us access to your ships, your weapons, and your warriors. In return, we will organize them into a fighting force that can actually win this war. This is madness, muttered several council members. But Admiral Korth was studying the human tactical displays with growing excitement. Their approach could work, she said slowly. It is completely different from anything we have tried. Different enough that the Devourers might not be able to adapt quickly enough. The Verdanian delegate raised one of his branch-like arms. What if you fail? What if your tactics do not work? Jake met the tree being's gaze steadily. Then the galaxy dies just like it will if you keep using the same failed strategies. But at least we will have tried something new. The debate that followed was intense. Some council members refused to consider putting humans in charge of anything important. Others argued that desperate times required desperate measures. A few pointed out that human ideas were the only new suggestions anyone had offered. Finally, High Counselor Nexus called for silence. "We will vote," the ancient being announced. "All in favor of granting Earth temporary authority to coordinate galactic defense?" The vote was closer than Jake had hoped, but wider than he had feared. When the count was finished, humanity had been given the impossible task of saving a galaxy that had once mocked them as the council members filed out to prepare for war. Ambassador Zethric approached Jake, the insect-like alien who had once laughed at human primitive nature, now looked at him with something like respect. "I hope you know what you are doing," Zethric said quietly. Jake looked out through the great windows of the council chamber at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, an enemy that had never been defeated was coming to destroy everything these beings had built over thousands of years. "So do I," Jake replied. "So do I." The real work was about to begin. Humanity had talked their way into leading the defense of the galaxy. Now they had to prove they could actually do it. The mockery had ended, but the test was just beginning. The first battle happened at a place called Kepler Junction, where 7 major space routes met like highways crossing in the middle of nowhere. Commander Lisa Hayes stood on the bridge of her ship, the Resilience. Around her worked a crew unlike any that had ever existed. A Zephyrian energy being handled communications. A Vorthic insect alien managed the sensors. 2 Corvin bear creatures operated the heavy weapons. 3 months had passed since the Galactic Council gave humans authority over the defense. Those 3 months had been the hardest work any of them had ever done. Jake Morrison had set up command. Centers on 12 different worlds. Each center was staffed with mixed teams of aliens and humans who had learned to work together, despite their differences. The language barriers had been terrible at first. The cultural misunderstandings had caused fights and confusion. But slowly, with patience and determination, the mixed crews had learned to function as teams. Humans had a gift for finding common ground between different species and helping them cooperate. Now they were about to face their first real test. "Enemy contacts detected," announced the Vorthic sensor operator. His name was Klixk, and he had 4 compound eyes that could see in multiple dimensions. Approximately 12,000 Devourer units approaching from Sector 9. Lisa felt her heart racing, but kept her voice calm. "All ships, this is Resilience Command. Execute formation pattern Delta 7. Remember your training." Around them, 300 ships from a dozen different species moved into position. But they did not arrange themselves in the traditional battle lines that alien militaries had used for thousands of years. Instead, they formed small groups of mixed vessels that could support each other and adapt quickly to changing situations. "Communications check," Lisa called out. "All group leaders report status." Voices came back in a dozen different languages, but the translation systems Jake's team had built made everything clear. Captain Murphy led a group of fast attack ships. Commander Singh coordinated the heavy fighters. Lieutenant Davis managed the support vessels. Each group included ships and crews from multiple species. "Devourer units entering weapons range," Klix reported. They are not using standard formation patterns. Individual units are adapting their shapes and weapon systems as they approach. This was exactly what the humans had expected. The Devourers did not fight like a traditional military. They fought like a swarm organism that learned and adapted. Constantly. All groups begin harassment pattern alpha, Lisa ordered. Do not engage directly. Hit and run tactics only. Share all data immediately. The battle began unlike any space combat in galactic history. Instead of two fleets charging at each other with maximum firepower, the defenders darted in and out like mosquitoes attacking a giant. Each small group would strike at the Devourers from a different angle, then retreat before the enemy could adapt. But the most important part was the information sharing. Every successful attack was analyzed instantly and shared with all other groups. Every failed attempt was studied and the lessons distributed across the entire fleet. The defense was learning and evolving faster than any military force had ever done before. Lieutenant Sam Cooper was flying a small fighter with a mixed crew of humans and Zephyrians. He had grown up on a farm in Iowa and had never imagined he would be fighting alongside energy beings in a war to save the galaxy. But he had always been good at noticing patterns that others missed. "Commander Hayes," Sam called over the communication system, "I think I see something. The Devourer units are not just talking to each other. They are connected somehow. When one learns something, they all learn it instantly." Dr. Kevin Park was listening from a research station 3 star systems away. He had been analyzing the battle data in real time, looking for weaknesses in the enemy's methods. "Sam is right," Kevin said excitedly. "The Devourers use quantum entanglement to share information. That is how they adapt so quickly. But if we can disrupt that connection, they would lose their coordination," Lisa finished. "Kevin, can you build something to interfere with their quantum communication?" "I need 15 minutes and a lot of luck," Kevin replied. "You have it," Lisa said. Then she switched to the fleet communication channel. "All groups, we need to keep the enemy busy for 15 minutes. Execute pattern Chaos 7. Make them think we are desperate and disorganized." The human ships began flying in what looked like panicked, random patterns. To the Devourers, it appeared that the defense was falling apart. The enemy units moved in closer, confident that victory was at hand, but the seemingly chaotic movements were actually carefully coordinated. Captain Murphy's attack ships were drawing the Devourers into a specific area. Commander Singh's heavy fighters were positioning themselves for a massive coordinated strike. Lieutenant Davis's support vessels were ready to deploy Kevin's new weapon the moment it was finished. "Quantum interference device ready," Kevin announced. "Uploading targeting data now." "All ships prepare for synchronized deployment," Lisa ordered. "We only get one chance at this. If it fails, the Devourers will adapt, and we will never be able to surprise them again." The moment came with split-second timing that would have been impossible for any traditional military. 300 ships from dozens of different species acted as one perfectly coordinated unit. The quantum interference devices activated simultaneously across a massive area of space. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Devourer units suddenly stopped their fluid, coordinated movements. Instead, they began flying in confused circles, no longer able to share information or adapt their tactics. They had become just individual machines instead of a connected swarm intelligence. "All groups, execute final strike pattern," Lisa commanded. "Hit them while they are disconnected." The defense fleet attacked with everything they had. Ships that had been built by different species using incompatible technologies worked together like parts of a single organism. Human creativity had found a way to make alien diversity into a strength rather than a weakness. The battle was over in minutes. 12,000 Devourer units were destroyed without losing a single defender. It was the first victory anyone had achieved against the mechanical invaders in their conquest of 3 galaxies. But the real war was just beginning. The main devourer force was still coming, heading straight for the galactic core, where they planned to consume the supermassive black hole that held the entire galaxy together. Admiral Jake Morrison commanded the final battle from the Bridge of Unity, a massive ship that had been built using technology from every species in the Confederation. Standing beside him was Ambassador Zethric, the same insect alien who had mocked humanity just 3 years earlier. "Human fleet reports ready," announced Captain Bennett from his station. "Zephyrian forces in position," added Admiral Korath, her energy form flickering with determination. "Corvan battle groups standing by," rumbled General Thane. One by one, representatives from every species in the galaxy reported their readiness. The fleet that Jake commanded was the largest military force in galactic history. But more importantly, it was the most cooperative. Humans had taught the galaxy how to fight as one people instead of hundreds of separate species. Devourer main force arrived like a dark cloud that blocked out the stars. Millions of mechanical units moved in perfect formation toward the galactic center. They had never been stopped. They had never even been slowed down. They expected this battle to be like all the others, a brief resistance followed by total consumption. Instead, they found something completely new. The galactic defense did not try to match their numbers or their technology. Instead, it used the one thing the Devourers had never encountered: true cooperation between different forms of life. The battle raged for hours across thousands of cubic light years of space. Every time the Devourers adapted to one tactic, the Defenders switched to another. Every time they tried to coordinate their response, quantum interference broke their connections. Every time they gained an advantage, the mixed species crews found a way to turn it against them. Jake watched the battle unfold on displays that showed information from every ship in the fleet. Humans working alongside aliens they had never met before. Species that had been enemies for centuries, fighting side by side. Old rivals sharing their most advanced technology to help each other survive. "Sir," called Lieutenant Maria Santos from her position at the communications station, "the Devourer force is beginning to retreat. They are withdrawing to the outer rim." Jake could hardly believe it. The enemy that had destroyed 3 entire galaxies was running away from a force they had expected to defeat easily. "All ships, pursue but do not overextend," Jake ordered. "Stay in formation and continue sharing data. We push them back, but we do not let them separate us." The retreat became a rout. Devourer units that had never known defeat fled in disorder. The quantum interference had broken their ability to adapt and coordinate. The mixed species tactics had confused their strategic programming. Most importantly, the sheer determination of beings fighting to protect their homes had overwhelmed their mechanical calculations. When the last Devourer unit disappeared into the darkness between galaxies, the galactic fleet gathered at the space station where this story had begun.